Yeah, someone said that I had a competitive advantage because I bought a bunch of old crusty SNES controllers and I play on a CRT. Yeah. That clearly gives me a competitive advantage, and the only way to get world record is with a CRT. Yeah. I believe it. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I don't know. Who's stopping someone from getting a $20 CRT from Craigslist? Yeah. Yeah, we need to ban them CRTs. Wait, what are we talking about? Yeah, and he said he can't do a CW. He'll never be able to do CWJ. Like this. This is what annoys me. I said, someone said, Zenny sounds really butthurt, really bitter sounding doc. If you can do it on original hardware, it's allowed. And I said, you can grab X-Ray and beat the game in 11 minutes on console or bust into Torian without killing any of the bosses, and we don't allow those things. There's nuance to this topic, and we are discussing many details of it for the health and growth of the SM community going forward. And I said, that's fair. Okay. My issue is that nobody ever suggested bad Fantoon RNG be separate, and now we're already off track. It's so annoying. It's already like... It's already like off track. It doesn't have anything to do with Fantoon RNG. That's not even the same thing. Like, you didn't watch the video. It's like, come on, man. It's not the same thing. Fantoon RNG is not the same as polling rates and us talking about getting mechanical switches, a never-ending endeavor to try to, like, get the best BT skip controller for 1% consistency instead of 0.5% consistency. Yeah, no one ever suggested bad Fantoon RNG be separate category, as are with BT, where a similar argument may be made, and it's not a good argument. You can't make a similar argument. Maybe killing BT is covered under calling it all bosses, yet even then it's already accepted to skip Spore Spawn. Yeah, that's a non-issue. That's not... It sounds like people don't want it because it's hard and unlikely. But if you don't get BT skip, the backup strat is just play normally. I don't see any problems. And now we're still back where we started. You didn't watch the video. I addressed this with somebody else too. You can't just continue. If you're going for world record attempts and you're trying to do BT skip, you have to reset every time you miss it. You miss it, you have to reset. Or else you lose 8 seconds or more. That's an automatic reset. 8 seconds isn't that much. Well, then neither is 12 seconds for the BT skip. I know it's a 2-hour-long video, but at least get like the key points, because that doesn't make any sense and it's annoying. And someone else said this too. Why not just go for it? And if you don't get it, just keep going. Whoever gets it would obviously have a huge advantage for the rest of the run. And once again, that's not how, you know, if you go for it, you have to reset, because if you go for it and miss it, you have to reset. You're worse off for trying it. How does the attempt cost you seconds? Because you have to do a setup. You have to get in a specific pixel position. You have to set up for it. You have to do a maximum jump. You have to land, pause the game, unpause the game, and then jump, and then hope you get it. If you don't get it, and then it's like a 50-50 sub-pixel shit, polling rate issues that have to do with hardware inconsistencies, then you have to reset. You have to reset. We should just ban Eddie. Lord Ostrich, thank you. I saw your comment. We should just ban Eddie. Yeah. Let's get him out of here. No. It's funny. It's funny. This isn't my first time dealing with YouTube comments. It's just we talked about this earlier, and it's like crabs in a bucket. Yeah, I mean, people care about what I think, but there's also a lot of people that just don't listen. And then they spew shit as like as something that's factual, and it's just nonsense, and it doesn't add anything to the conversation. But then they talk about it like it's facts, or it's like from a position of authority on the matter, and it's like, yeah, there's nothing to do about that. I don't see the comment that talking about how you should be confidently wrong about you should be removed or you should retire. Damn, read my comment. Okay, I was hoping to find that one. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It is nuanced. That's why it is good to have a conversation. I don't care if people have like differing opinions, as long as like their differing opinion is actually not nonsense, you know. That's all. There's plenty of people that disagree, and it like actually sounds decent, but plenty of people that disagree and then like start stating things as facts, and it's just like, stop. It's not. It's basically, yeah, whether or not to allow it. And like I'm kind of in both camps. Like because I don't like just nuking something from existence. You know, it's just but then you say that, and then there's so much nuance to it, because you have to think about like the health of the community. If you have all of a sudden in the future, in like 5 or 10 years, every run has BT skip as a world record, and then you have people coming in and they say, I have to do what if I want to compete at a high level, even if you have to or not? Like, it's just bad. Would opinions change if it was at the end of the run? Oh yeah, it wouldn't even be questioned, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. If it was at the end of the run, even for them, this isn't like, oh, you're a god gamer, you can do it. It's who wants to put in as much time as Drewski has so far, God bless him, to even get to that, like, a small, tiny fraction of consistency. If someone wants to dedicate time and incorporate BT skip into the run, let them. At the end of the day, it's massive skill. Yeah, I mean, it is skill in order to do that, but we're talking, oh my God, it's like so complicated. It's a 50-50 on top of hardware deciding whether or not you can do it. On top of that 50-50, you could, let's say this, you could be so goddamn pro and you could hit like the 30 hurt mashing and then hope to get the 50-50, and then you could do actually frame perfect arm pumps. Frame perfect. And then you still won't get it, even if you win the 50-50. Does that make sense? You win the 50-50. You're godlike at 30 hurt arm pumps. You do them. You actually get the 30 hurt arm pumps. You hit the frame perfect jump. The setup's perfect. Everything was perfect. The game will go, nah, we didn't like those. And then you look back and you're like, no, I did. It was perfect. It was frame perfect arm pumping. Your console is gonna go, nah, no, you didn't. Does that put it a little bit better into perspective how dumb this is? Yeah. Oh, you had actually frame perfect inputs and you mashed frame perfectly 28 times? Doesn't matter. You're not gonna get it, says the console. Because of polling rates. How it reads inputs. The console said, ligma balls. Yeah, so I get that double. And if you want to go for it, yeah, that's fine. What if we just ban Drewski? I say we just ban Drewski. And Eddie on top of that. Yeah, it's like a cherry on top. Most communities draw a line at hardware-based inconsistency. If Ocarina of Time Overflow had a 50% chance to not work every run no matter what you did, they would likely ban it. So that's the biggest thing for me, is the fact that the console has an issue with inputs being pressed that fast to where even if you're perfect, frame perfect, it won't work. Even if you win the 50-50 coin toss, it won't work. You do everything right, it won't work because of hardware limitations. Yeah. Yes, that's see, this is why I'm trying to like drill this into people's mind. That's why I said if you do everything perfect, all frame perfect, everything's super good. You nailed it. Your arm pumps were insane. You win the 50-50. You still can't get it in some cases because of the hardware. Dr. Girlfriend made a really good video on this. I should probably just link it so you can watch the polling rates. Let me just link it. Hold on. I should probably like pin this in this as well. In my video.
Button presses on the controller get into the game. This is done by having the console pull the controller. The first time anyone ever succeeded in performing a BT skip in an NTSC task. So we have known about this move for about 16 years, and in that time, to my knowledge, not one person has come forward and claimed that they have executed the move in a real-time environment. But could a person ever do it in the future? Well, as we will see in the course of this video, the RTA environment has a problem that TAS does not. To understand a little better what it means to input frame-perfect mashing in real time, we need to look deeper at how button presses on the controller get into the game. This is done by having the console pull the controller, and this oscilloscope shows us exactly what that looks like. I created a special cable that allows an oscilloscope to tap into the signals that are being transmitted between the console and the controller. Once per frame, the console asks the controller to report the states of all the buttons.
Hold on, let me get rid of this.
Zooming out here, we see that each grid tick mark on the oscilloscope's x-axis represents 5 milliseconds. So we can see that the console is definitely pulling the controller once every 16 milliseconds or so, or one frame. That pink signal on the oscilloscope is the one that starts the pulling process, and it goes high once per frame to pull the controller. The pace at which the controller responds is set by the yellow signal. It is a clock provided to the controller from the console. When the controller detects that the pink signal has gone high, it responds by locking the states of all the buttons, then reports them one by one in that blue signal. Each button has an assigned location in that signal. This chip on the controller's printed circuit board is called a shift register, and it is the thing that listens to the pink and yellow signals and generates the blue signal, effectively serializing the button states for transmission to the console. Once the console reads the button states, it uses that information to update the internal data
Nice
in the
PVM,
game.
by the
This
way.
is things like the position of Samus and the enemies on the screen, their animation states, etc. Then the frame is drawn on a memory buffer, which is then output on a video signal that connects to the screen. When creating a task, the transmission of inputs is managed, so the polling is not usually a factor, although I imagine there may be some corner cases where that is not always true. In the RTA environment, however, that polling signal does matter, and this is one of the differences between TAS and RTA. So to understand how the polling of the controller has an impact in this case, we cannot just look at frames, we must look between the frames. And for lack of a better word, we are going to divide each frame into 16 segments of time and call each of those units a subframe. So for the purposes of this study, a subframe is just a fraction of a frame, and in this case, it is 1/16. We are creating a special definition here for convenience only. I want to retain accuracy when describing events.
That's what people will say.
Well,
Well, just allow a turbo button
I would also
then.
like to avoid using too many numbers that have infinite decimal places, as I don't want to lose anyone in the math.
And then they'll also say,
TAS
don't
and
ban it
emulator
because it's a
development
part of the run.
community uses the word subframe already to describe an emulator that pulls the controller multiple times within a single video frame. Since my second definition is also talking about when in the cycle of a video frame a button gets pressed, I hope I am not stepping on anyone's toes too hard by using a custom definition here, as it is in the same spirit as the existing definition. Flash warning for those that are sensitive to flashing: do not watch the next 4 minutes. I will let you know when it's safe. Okay, this is high-speed video of Super Metroid on an SNES console connected to a Sony BVM. This is what it looks like when a CRT TV refreshes when you slow it down. It is off screen, but I have modified a set of controllers to immediately illuminate a red LED when the item select button on the controller is pressed. The high-speed video records at 960 frames per second. 60 times 16 is 960, so for every 16 images on the high-speed video, you get 1 frame on the monitor. This is not exact, as the
Dr. Girlfriend
SNES
has a
hardware
very
actually runs
impressive
at
setup here. I like this.
60.0988 Hz, but rounding will work for our purposes. This is why we have chosen 16 segments of time in each SNES frame to define as a subframe. That means that every image in the high-speed video
This is
one
how I get my
subframe.
advantage playing on
Using this
CRT, yeah.
terminology will help us not confuse the frames generated by the SNES at 60 Hz versus the frames generated by the high-speed video at 960 Hz. It also just so happens that one subframe is very close to being 1 millisecond in duration, as each SNES frame is about 16.639 milliseconds long. We will define subframe 1 as that first millisecond after the screen refreshed. Well, as it turns out, screens do not refresh instantaneously, so technically, subframe 1 is the first millisecond after the screen starts to refresh with the new frame. The reason it is important to talk about subframes is because when we are talking about moves that have input requirements that operate on such small timescales, you have to consider that someone can press a button on any of the 16 subframes in a polling cycle, as this will come into play later. So that LED in the video can come on at any time in between the start of a new frame being drawn on the display, and it is more or less random which subframe the start of any given button press is going to land on. The only way to do any meaningful analysis on subframes is to collect a large sample size of button presses, then undergo a painstaking process of analyzing which button presses happen to land on subframe 1, which ones happen to land on subframe 2, and so on. Then you can check the video to see how many frames it took for that button press to actually get applied in the game. The original purpose of these high-speed videos was to measure the differences between input latency on different controllers, some on original hardware and some on emulator over USB. When the console pulls the controller for button states, those button presses do not actually make it into the next frame that is drawn, as creating a frame is a bit of a pipeline process.
Oh, another thing too is this is good because there's also hardware differences, which we did talk about a little bit. Like there are hardware differences because the polling rate is different. That's it. I'm gone. See ya.
On frame 2 or frame 3. If the button was pressed in the first 12 subframes, then the press will be applied 2 frames later. If the button was pressed in subframes 13 through 16, then the press will be applied 3 frames later. In other words, the controller is getting pulled on subframe 13. Now if you try to repeat these results, your mileage will vary, as the results also depend on what you are using for a display and what kind of latency it has. Not even CRT TVs are perfect or even consistent in this regard. This is why advanced players might need to undergo a period in which they retune the timing of their inputs when using new or different hardware. During this latency study, I came to an interesting realization. Now, it is well known that original hardware has the lowest latency out of any setup, with USB controllers having added latency. My results confirm this, but it is actually worse than just additional latency. USB controllers also introduce something I call ambiguous subframes. Let us say you have some way of ensuring that every time you press a button, it is being pressed on subframe 5. On original hardware, your input will always get applied on frame 2, but on a USB controller, it could get applied on frame 4 or frame 5, and you have absolutely no way of knowing or controlling which of these 2 frames your input will get applied on. In other words, USB controllers, from what I can tell, are not good for frame-perfect inputs. They introduce an element of randomness to your attempts.
is bad. So
okay, flashing warning is over. Original hardware has no ambiguous subframes whatsoever. I never encountered
original
a
hardware is superior.
Presses on a particular
yep, that's why I have a clear advantage playing on this PVM. Yeah.
This makes sense because the hardware's polling process is custom made for the job of transporting controller button states. It is lightning fast and efficient. The USB protocol is general purpose, and it sits in between the controller and the emulator, contributing to these effects. Out of all the controllers I tested, the best performing one that was not a stock wired controller was actually the 8-bit DOE SN30 2.4 GHz wireless controller. Its latency is almost as low as original hardware, and it only has 5 ambiguous subframes, which is not too bad. Every USB controller I tested introduced at least 2 additional frames of latency, and the vast majority of their subframes are ambiguous. This is why I'm limiting the study to original hardware only. If you cannot do it on original hardware, you will never be able to do it on anything else. But I will mention here again that I never included a keyboard in the latency testing to see if the performance is similar to that of a USB gamepad.
That'd be interesting to see. Keyboard as well.
Now that you know that we can capture subframe phenomena using high-speed video, let us take a look at doing just that when you press a shoulder button. Remember, we are limiting
All right, I think that's pretty much the end of the polling rate thing. Now we're talking about travel distance and stuff.
It does not include the amount of time that the button is held down, just the travel down and the travel up.
This is also the mechanical switch aspect of it.
One thing that caught my eye while analyzing this.
Then this is huge as well. It can be done with the travel distance on an OEM. However, this is also another issue of why we're talking about mechanical switches being just a never-ending pursuit, trying to find like the perfect switch that doesn't have travel distance issues and is just, you know, extremely responsive. And then you just have to, it's just annoying.
Down and the travel up. Now, one thing that caught my eye while analyzing this data is that the time it takes for the button to be pressed is not perfectly consistent. Even when you
it's such a can of worms. So this is like a long video just talking about this stuff. and super in-depth. Then you have people that just spew poop out of their mouths talking about it.
Polling phase problem.
Okay, here we go.
Contrive an example to demonstrate what
The polling phase. This is what we should look at.
A single frame in duration. In these two graphs, we have 48 subframes representing 3 SNES frames. Controller polling occurs on subframes 13, 29, and 45. We have aimed to press the shoulder button for exactly 16 subframes in duration, but we are going to apply the error bars we talked about earlier, and in the first case, the button was only pressed for 13 subframes, whereas in the second case, the button was pressed for 19 subframes. Remember that you cannot tell which subframe you start pressing a button in since it is happening too fast. That is what I call the polling phase, where in the polling cycle you start pressing the button. If you happen to start pressing each of these button presses on subframe 6, for example, then you are good to go. You will press a button for a single frame in duration because remember, the controller gets pulled on subframe 13. Each press was long enough to have been held down during subframe 13, and each button press was released before the next time that the controller was pulled on subframe 29. However, if these button presses happen to fall on subframe 12, then we have a problem. In the first case, you will have pressed the button for a single frame because the button will get released on subframe 25, which is before the next pull occurs on subframe 29, but the second press gets released on subframe 31, which comes after the next pulling subframe on 29.
So even though that you're frame perfect, there's subframes within every frame, and then you miss a polling cycle.
That second button press was held down for 19.7 milliseconds, which is pretty darn close to one frame of 16.6 milliseconds.
The frame perfect isn't good enough. No, because the way that hardware pulls your input.
You held the button down for 2 full frames because within that 19.7 millisecond window, you captured 2 pulls.
Yeah, it's a skill issue for sure.
Now imagine that these button presses occurred in subframe 14. Now it is the first press that is problematic because it gets released on subframe 27, which is before the next pulling subframe on 29.
Yeah, but the issue with this too is, all jokes aside, going, you weren't frame perfect enough within your frames. Which half the chat in here doesn't comprehend what the time of single frame is anyways, with a 60.098 clock speed console. So, you know, that's just a meme. But, I lost my train of thought because I was talking shit. But anyways, it's just ridiculous. The other issue is, this is different on different hardware as well. There's different polling phases.
Was held down for 13.5 milliseconds, which is pretty darn close.
I respect that you're still trying to explain it, even though you know it's a lost battle.
The game does.
So the funny part is, if this were to go up on YouTube to the people that go, well, like, it just sounds like people don't want to do hard things. They would see this and go, well, yeah, like, it's super hard to, like, line up the subframes within the frames, and, like, you just are scared of that? That's what would occur if this was like...
Sounds like people don't want to do hard things skill diff.
Yes. That's what people would say if now this were brought up. And I'm trying to, like, explain this issue. They would go, well, like I get that 16 milliseconds or whatever you said is, like, a small amount of time. But, like, I did one of those reaction time tests, and after 45 minutes of guessing, I had a 2 millisecond reaction time. So, like... it's possible to line it up. So I don't get why you wouldn't just line up your subframes within each frame. You know? And that's what people would say listening to this.
Does not know and does not care. As far as it is concerned, you held the button down for 0 full frames because within that 13.5 millisecond window, you captured no pulls of the controller. You can try this last example for yourself if
even though you did it perfect, even though this is still frame perfect technically. That last example wasn't frame perfect, the example before was.
So I don't get why you don't line up your frames with sun frames.
Bad polling phase, if you will. In this video, for example, you should be seeing the R button pressed as denoted in the upper left corner of the screen for every time you hear a click. But sometimes an R press gets skipped. This happens when the button only makes electrical contact in between pulls of the controller. But just to be absolutely positively sure that I was not making this up, I programmed an Arduino to output a signal pulse once per second, and the duration of each pulse is 13 subframes. I staggered the timing of the pulse a little bit to make sure that we get a different pulse.
Thank you, Dr. Girlfriend, because this is so technical.
The Arduino connects to a relay, which itself is connected to an SNES controller circuit board wired into the Y button. The controller connects to the console with the oscilloscope tapped in to show how the controller responds every time it gets pulled. You will notice that once per second, the LED illuminates, the Y button's location on the oscilloscope blips, and the Y button registers briefly in the input display feature of the Super Metroid practice hack in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. There will be a batch of inputs every now and then, where even though the LED does flicker, the oscilloscope shows no input, and the game does not register a Y press. This happens when that 13 subframe pulse gets a bad polling phase and falls completely in between subsequent pulls of the controller.
Bam. Bad
this
polling
is the
phase
problem in action.
This is interesting.
The Arduino to output a 19 subframe pulse. Now the expected result is that every now and then the Y button will get registered as having been pressed for 2 frames instead of the usual 1. It is a little harder to confirm this on real hardware, so for the next best thing, I hooked the controller into an emulator and recorded the inputs, while the 19 subframe button pulses were sent. I played back the movie and frame advanced one by one, and sure enough, every now and then the playback registered 2 frames in a row in which the Y button was held down. Again, this is happening because within that 19 subframe window of a button press, we got a bad polling phase and the controller was pulled twice. So these signals from the Arduino verify the polling charts from earlier. This is just how thin the needle is that we are trying to thread. When attempted in an RTA environment, 30 Hz arm pumping is not just frame perfect, it is more like subframe perfect. The polling phase
that's why Drewski gets, after doing the math with how much he's done it and how good he's gotten at it, one skip per 8 hours of nonstop runs. That still sounds high. That might still even be high. I don't know. All right, this is Dr. Girlfriend's video. Very well done. Go show some support. If you want to like watch the rest, it's very interesting. It's very cool. Yeah, it's wild. And I do want to say, like, Dr. Girlfriend did leave a comment on the video too. I obviously don't want to take away. It's a huge accomplishment what Drewski did, and it's like legendary, and it's a huge achievement. So yes, that is important to like remember. Even though we're having this discussion, it's easy to like look past that, but that's like a huge, massive, legendary achievement. So yeah, it's insane. Yeah, the thing is too, it's just so easy to like get lost in this debate that we forget that Drewski is a legend. You know, it's all about setup. Finding a less time-consuming setup will make this discussion less relevant. Well, the thing is, the pause is almost needed. So the pause is one of the time-consuming parts. You have to pause and unpause. That's 6-7 seconds gone. You have to do that because you can't Zoden pump like this and then jump at the same time. Like, it would be a frame-perfect jump. You know. The pause is what makes it humanly viable. Yes. You would need a third hand. It would just be insane. Yeah, because you don't have enough fingers. You'd have to do this, press jump, and then you have to like use your middle finger to door check. Like, the reason the pause is needed is so you can just let go, hold it normally, and then just buffer a jump. Yeah, the thing is, so like whatever happens, it is what it is. You know. But I just want people to understand how ridiculous this is. Yeah, no, it's possible, isn't it? Wait, because you could possibly still push the button, but doing so with any amount of yeah. It's really unlikely. I mean, knowing Drewski, he'll probably do it, you know. But yeah, then this is before the whole mechanical switch debate, which. I mean, come on. It's so annoying to see people talk about, oh, get with the times. Yeah, let's just keep endlessly adding, soldering mechanical switches to our SNES controllers. When people, because it's funny, they'll say, well, get with the times. This is all old hardware anyway, that's garbage. but also solder a mechanical switch to that same garbage hardware that I'm saying that should be in the past. Get with the times, old man. Solder them fucking mechanical switches on your controller. And then when there's a new, better mechanical switch, pop that sucker off and solder a new one. It's just so annoying. Oh, well, you don't have to use that. Just get a mechanical keyboard. And then get those custom switches. Bobby? Get them custom switches, Bobby. Yeah, and then get an Elon brain implant that speeds up your nervous system, that amps it up, juices your nervous system up to like give you fast twitch muscles for like brief periods of time. The feel for a mechanical switch is so vastly different. That's why I'm personally pursuing a decent membrane. Yeah, and people talk about like stuff breaking and, well, there are replacements, you know, for all this stuff. Very handsome. Oh, thank you. Rules allow hitboxes, so why bother with mechanical switches anyways? Well, when I talked about hitboxes earlier on my YouTube comment and how you can't break out a spin with them, someone just suggested we have spin lock for all the major categories. We just have a button for spin lock. So then we won't break out a spin. That was their suggestion to fixing a, you know, yeah, genius. It's just, I don't want to like shit on anyone giving suggestions like that. Wait. Someone just said, I was saying for years and years that someone would eventually do it. Was struck down by every speedrunner every time. Including Zost saying it was humanly impossible. End of discussion. Looks like once again I was right. Yeah, that was before Zodin pumps. I don't even think I should comment on this. Don't do it. Oh, we're banning you, yeah. Now don't respond to the guy. I've responded to so many people. Eddie, it's just, sometimes you gotta just respond, you know? Oh, it's feeding the trolls. I hate when people say that shit. Someone will say something so stupid and be like, oh, it's don't respond to that. Don't feed the trolls. There's always new tech being discovered. Saying something isn't possible or can never be normalized in a run is just ignorant. Who knows what someone finds next year. Bro. Hey, how many undiscovered species are left in the ocean, Double Dizzle? You don't know, right? Because they're undiscovered. How many tricks do you think are left undiscovered in Super Metroid? You don't know, right? Because they're undiscovered. By definition, they are undiscovered. Before Zodin pumping and then the humanly viable setup was found, it was impossible. Guess what made it possible? A new discovery. I think the conversation gets out of hand when people who don't play the game, aren't part of the community, want to be part of the decision or the discussion. Yeah. He already left, bro, because he knows he's about to get nuked. Like, that's it. Coward. You left? Okay, you didn't leave. However, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you when I say how many discoveries are left in Super Metroid? And when I say, well, we can't know because they're undiscovered. Yes, but when you say that, you're saying there's no species in the ocean. No. No. That's... When you say that, when you say how many undiscovered species are in the ocean, you do not know because they're undiscovered. You do not say with certainty that there are none to be found. Do you not understand the difference here? Oh, dude, I think we can all agree it's your fault. Yep. Still got their tax return. Oh, it's remember, you're feeding the troll, trying to argue with logic. Well, I mean, sometimes I'm stupid too, but I mean, am I not making sense here? You're saying under our current setup, something cannot be done until a new trick is discovered. Yes, yes. So by definition, it isn't humanly possible until, yes. And that's what I've said the entire time. And when people have asked in the past, is this possible? It generally boils down to, currently it's not. It is impossible currently, with our current knowledge of the game. So unless something new is found, it won't probably be possible. So when people say, oh, it's just sub 39 possible in any percent? No, it is not possible at the moment until we find some way to make it possible that has been undiscovered. It's not discovered yet. We don't know. Currently, it's not going to happen. You saying, or Zoe saying that no, never happening is just as conceited or more so as me saying there's a new game-changing trick. You saying that no, never happening. You realize that I just explained it, but you were in the middle of typing, so you probably wanted to get that out. It always comes down to us talking about, and I'm sure Zos has said this too, with our current understanding, there is nothing. There is nothing that will make that thing possible. Then it changes because there's a new discovery which makes it possible. Do you not understand this? And how is that conceited? First of all, explain how that's conceited. Saying no, under these conditions, it's not possible. How do you get to being conceited? And how is that more conceited? What? Than you saying there's a new game-changing trick. If you say there's a new game-changing trick, we all know that there's a new game-changing trick. That moves the goalpost, and then we have to reevaluate what's possible. I don't understand. Like, you're just doubling down. It's just not making sense. It's bizarre. SM podcast win. Yeah, I should be a part of the podcast universe. There's not enough podcasters. Step aside, Joe Rogan. I'll do an SM podcast with you. What are we talking about? Super Metroid for 5 years? The Brain Busters. I would, if I had an SM podcast, I would talk about banning Eddie every single episode. That would always be a topic. About like some way to ban Eddie. Oh, what's up, Eddie? You're still here. Sounds like he's basically saying anything is possible, so it's 100% possible. No, not anything is possible in this game because there are limits to what you can actually do in this game. You can't turn the game on and then fly your way, grow a cape, and fly your way to Mother Brain, explode, kill Mother Brain in 4 seconds, and then fly off the planet. Well, oh, it's anything is possible. You saying that's impossible is kind of conceited. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a sweet ROM hack, yeah. Yeah, and not to mention, like, we do only have 10 fingers and 2 thumbs, and, you know, we do have limitations to what we can do. We can't, like, yeah, do arbitrary code and, like, recode the game until we get those chips, you know. 10 fingers, 2 thumbs? Wait, you guys don't have 10 fingers and 2 thumbs? All of a sudden I put my hand up and I have 6 digits. My cousin Don did it yesterday. Oh, he did? But using an extra appendage. Oh yeah, what appendage did you have in mind? I was watching Big Dick Gamer 69 and he hits BT skip every time. That's my alt and I don't hit BT skip every time. Come on. Add some controller strats where I put my chin on angle up. Oh my god. You're making a custom hitbox controller with like a button that goes up to your chin. So you can like barely move your chin to like hit extra inputs. No regular controller. How'd you do that? Oh. What in the world? That's bizarre. Batcave? Why can't you just be normal, Eddie? Yeah, my god. Yeah, what if you have to sneeze? That sounds ridiculously hard, yeah. Yep. More to the arsenal when I'm talking about banning Eddie. All right, so that's enough of that BT discussion again. You know, it is, I want to have civil discussions about it, and it just does get annoying when people, like, try to talk about stuff that they don't understand or they don't know anything about. So, I think I'm just going to, like, mask off and stop caring. And sometimes I need to not even care and just be like, yo, you're stupid. Just that settles that. You're just stupid. I'm stupid. I'm really stupid in a lot of things. I don't know anything about microbiology. I'm very limited. I don't know anything about neuroscience. I know a little bit about how my brain works, not well. I can tell you that much. But I do know about Super Metroid. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Everyone have a fantastic night. What's wrong, Charles? Goodbye, Charles.
I never get the hang. Well, whenever you get in here, it signals when I gotta leave.
Charles is here. I gotta go. Time to leave.